Welcome to Heartfelt Tales, where the most extraordinary stories come to life with raw emotion, gripping twists, and unforgettable moments. Have you ever encountered a tale so powerful, it leaves you questioning everything you thought you knew about life? Here, we delve deep into the heart of human experiences, stories that will challenge, inspire, and move you in ways you never imagined. This video is not just a simple tale, it's a journey into the world of real emotions, true grit, and powerful lessons. Every second counts, and if you stay until the very end, you'll be left with insights that resonate long after the screen fades to black. But here's the catch, these stories don't just belong to the people we talk about. They belong to you too. So, grab a seat, and make sure you stick around for the full experience. I promise, you won't want to miss a single moment. A good leader not only demonstrates intelligence and decisiveness on the political stage, but also in how they face challenges in their personal life. But how can a vice president, who governs the country, handle family matters with the same finesse? This story will provide you with the answer. Today, we'll dive into the life of an exceptional figure in American politics, a vice president who stands out not only for his sharp political strategies but also for being a role model for a happy family. He is a remarkable leader, once a close ally of Donald Trump, playing a key role in the country's major decisions. However, few know that behind the important decisions and powerful speeches, he is also a father like any other, constantly facing personal life challenges. This vice president is known for his assertive leadership style, always able to uphold principles in tough situations. No matter how busy his schedule, he places great importance on caring for and protecting his family, especially his children. He understands that a political career is not everything, and sometimes, the most important decisions are made during dinner conversations or simple moments with his kids. As a father, the vice president is always busy with a packed schedule. But that doesn't mean he misses the important moments in his children's lives. Whenever possible, he carves out time for his family, whether it's a simple dinner or short trips to visit his kids. He knows that while he runs the country, his family is the place where he finds balance and inner strength. However, being a father in such a powerful family also means facing challenges that all parents experience. How do you raise your children in a complex environment, with the invisible pressures and expectations from the public? The answer lies in patience, understanding, and the ability to handle family challenges with finesse. Today, we will witness a story that no one could have imagined happening to a vice president. His son, Ethan, is being bullied at school. In a volatile society where the actions and words of public figures are scrutinized, what will a powerful father like the vice president do when his son faces bullying at school? With his power and influence, he could easily solve this issue through formal channels, even demanding that the school intervene. However, instead of using his power, he chooses to address the situation with care and subtlety. The vice president cannot solve this problem with a decree or authority, he must do it with finesse, patience, and the skill of a true father. This is a challenge that even he, with all his experience in politics, could not easily overcome. While he is a senior leader capable of making decisions in critical situations, in this case, he is just an ordinary father, wanting to protect his child from suffering. Ethan, the vice president's son, is a shy boy who usually doesn't share much about his personal life. However, one day, the change in his behavior made the vice president realize that something was wrong. Ethan no longer seemed as joyful as before, and sometimes, his eyes showed a worry the vice president had never seen before. The vice president could feel that his son was struggling. As a father, he understood that Ethan wouldn't easily share the difficulties he was facing. But he knew that, given the situation, he could not sit back and do nothing. Ethan, the vice president's 12-year-old son, attends a prestigious private school in Washington, D.C. The school, where he studies, is considered one of the top institutions in the city, frequented by children from influential families. But despite being in such a high-status environment, children of famous politicians like Ethan face invisible pressures that others cannot feel. As the son of the vice president, Ethan is not just a regular student. He is always the center of attention whenever he appears, with prying eyes from peers, teachers, and even adults constantly watching his every move. The expectations surrounding his family and father are something any child would feel. In a society where fame, power, and influence are highly valued, the children of famous people can never lead a normal life like other children. Ethan is a living proof of this. Recently, Ethan has become more withdrawn than usual. He was once a cheerful, lively child who was always eager to share everything with his parents. But lately, he has often quietly sat in his room, with eyes showing signs of fatigue. Every morning, when the vice president leaves the house for work, Ethan refuses to get out of bed. When he goes to school, he no longer seems happy, replaced by a silence and melancholy that the vice president cannot understand. Ethan began changing his habits. He no longer wanted to interact with his friends at school. Instead, he would sit alone at lunch in a secluded corner of the playground, avoiding any attention. His silence made the vice president even more worried. These behaviors were unlike the son he once knew, and although he was always busy with work, he knew that this issue couldn't be ignored. Parents are always the first to notice when something is wrong with their children. However, due to his busy schedule, the vice president had not had time to talk and understand Ethan's problems. Though he knew that family was always important, his work required him to attend important meetings, negotiate with other countries, and deal with urgent national issues. Yet, the feeling of unease grew inside him every time he saw his son quiet and distant. One evening, after returning home from a tense government meeting, the vice president had no idea that a simple conversation would reveal significant concerns. When he entered the living room, he saw Ethan sitting alone on the sofa, his eyes red as if he had been crying the entire afternoon. This situation surprised and worried the vice president, as Ethan was not the type to cry, especially in front of him. The vice president walked over, sat next to Ethan, and gently asked, "What's wrong, Ethan? Why are your eyes red like that?" Ethan looked up at his father but didn't respond immediately. He quietly sat there, holding tightly to the sports clothes he had worn since the morning. The vice president could sense that something was wrong. He knew that if he remained silent, Ethan might never open up. So, he continued, "Can you tell me what's been happening? I'm here, and you can tell me anything." After a while, Ethan sighed and finally spoke, "Dad, the kids at school say I'm only here because you're the vice president. They don't see me as me, just as your son." These words left the vice president stunned. He didn't know how to react to such painful words. Not only did these words hurt Ethan, but they also reminded the vice president of the pressure and expectations he had been placing on his son. But that wasn't all. Ethan went on to tell his father about times when he had been teased at school. A group of kids in his class had started criticizing him, saying that he would never succeed without his father's help. These words not only made Ethan feel inadequate but also made him feel isolated and abandoned. He didn't know who he was other than being the son of a famous vice president. Listening to Ethan's words, the vice president could no longer contain his emotions. He felt his heart heavy, and a sense of guilt suddenly filled his mind. As a father, he always wanted to protect his son from hardship, but now he realized that he was unintentionally creating a world full of challenges for Ethan. He couldn't use his power to shield his son from the pain in society, especially when the boy had to face the unfair discrimination and expectations placed on him by those around him. The vice president sat silently for a while, thinking about what he had just heard, unsure of what to do next. A sense of helplessness rose within him, and he wondered if he was truly capable of being a good father. He knew that not everything could be solved with power or influence. This was a lesson he needed to learn all over again. Finally, the vice president turned to Ethan, gently patted his shoulder, and said, "I can't change what others say about you, but I will always be here, listening and protecting you. Don't let anyone define you by what they think about me. You are you, and that's what matters most." Ethan looked up at his father, his eyes still wet with tears, but he felt a sense of relief. The vice president's words were like a healing balm, helping him realize that family was still the safest place to turn to when facing hardships. Although the vice president had begun to understand some of what his son was going through, he also realized that this issue could not be resolved immediately. His son had to face challenges that a typical child might never have to experience. Nevertheless, the vice president decided he would not let Ethan face it alone. He would do everything he could to help his son overcome this difficult phase, with patience, love, and the support of a true father. The story of Ethan and the vice president was just beginning, but with understanding and empathy, they would face even greater challenges together in the future. After hearing Ethan's words, the vice president realized that his son was facing a significant challenge. But instead of immediately using his power to fix the issue, he decided to think carefully. He understood that simply telling Ethan to be strong or that I will handle this could make things worse. The vice president knew that an ill-timed piece of advice could pressure Ethan even more and push him further away. Instead, he decided to truly listen and understand his son. The vice president started by taking the smallest steps. He not only listened to Ethan but also observed how he reacted whenever the school, friends, and situations there were brought up. Ethan seemed timid and anxious, but there were moments when his eyes reflected a pain that he couldn't express in words. The vice president realized that his son wasn't just enduring bullying, but also felt the heavy expectations from both the family and society, making him feel lost and unable to express himself. The vice president understood that this was not just an issue of bullying but also about facing societal expectations, the comparison to other children, and the loneliness that his son had to endure. He decided to look at the issue from the perspective of a child, not from the lens of a powerful politician. And so, he began to plan how to help his son cope with the problem in a subtle way. One evening, the vice president decided to invite Ethan out for ice cream. This simple activity, full of meaning, created a relaxed space where the two could talk without pressure from work or other life concerns. The vice president didn't immediately bring up the bullying issue. Instead, he began the conversation with something simple but very real for his son. "You know, when I was your age, I was teased by my friends. They said I would never do anything big. They told me I had no future and that I would never stand out in this society." Ethan looked up at his father, eyes wide with surprise. "Dad, you were bullied too?" He couldn't believe that his father, someone who held such an important position in the government, had once felt so vulnerable. The vice president smiled and nodded, replying, "Yes, I was bullied. But I learned an important lesson: no one has the right to define who you are except you. No one can tell you who you are or what you can do. Only you know yourself best." The vice president's words were gentle but heavy with meaning, like a valuable lesson he wanted to pass on to his son. Ethan sat quietly, thinking about what his father had just said. For the first time in his life, he felt understood and no longer pressured to live up to others' expectations. A sense of freedom began to fill his heart, and that was the first step toward Ethan finding confidence in himself. The vice president didn't just share his own story, but also guided Ethan on how to face life's challenges. He didn't say that everything would be easy, but he emphasized that everyone has the right to choose how they want to face their trials. The vice president continued, "So, every time you feel teased or judged, remember that what matters isn't what others say, but how you respond to it." The vice president didn't use his power to intervene at the school or demand that teachers take action. He understood that, in a situation like this, his direct intervention would only complicate things. Instead, he decided to help Ethan find his own way to deal with the issue. The vice president started teaching his son how to respond smartly when teased. He taught Ethan how to use words to counter ridicule without hurting others, while also ensuring that he wouldn't become a victim. The vice president not only taught his son how to deal with awkward situations, but also helped Ethan discover his own strengths. He reminded his son that everyone has their unique abilities, and instead of being influenced by others' words, Ethan should confidently nurture his own talents. One day, after a tense school day, the vice president sat down with Ethan again. He continued to share the value of perseverance and independence. "You know, Dad never gave up, even when things were so difficult that they seemed impossible to overcome. During those times, I always told myself that nothing is impossible. You should do the same, Ethan. Be persistent and never let anyone decide your limits." These words were like seeds planted in Ethan's soul. Gradually, Ethan began to change how he viewed himself. He realized that while he couldn't change the things around him, he could completely change how he faced them. And that was what the vice president wanted for his son, not just to cope with challenges, but to overcome them with strength and resilience. After the conversations and lessons the vice president shared with Ethan, the boy gradually changed the way he viewed himself. Instead of letting teasing or the expectations of others control his emotions, Ethan began to learn how to face them more calmly and confidently. He no longer felt like he was just the son of the vice president. Instead, Ethan realized that he could build his own unique value and didn't need to live up to comparisons with other children. One of the key turning points in Ethan's transformation came when he started to confront the teasing from his classmates with a completely different attitude. One day, when a group of classmates teased Ethan again about having a father who was the vice president, instead of getting angry or retaliating, he calmly responded, "Sure, my dad is the vice president. But I also have things that I've achieved on my own." Ethan's words not only surprised his classmates who had been teasing him but also demonstrated the change in his attitude. He no longer saw himself through the lens of being just a child of a famous parent, but as an individual who could create success and value on his own. Since Ethan started becoming more confident, he began dedicating more time to his personal interests. One of Ethan's biggest passions was writing. He had always been interested in sharing his thoughts and emotions through writing. Previously, he never dared to share his writings, fearing that he would be judged just for being the vice president's son. But now, with newfound confidence and his father's support, Ethan decided to start a blog. One day, he created a blog with a unique title, A Child's Life in the White House. He began writing about his daily life, the challenges and obstacles he faced, and the moments of joy living in a family with such influence. He shared his thoughts on learning to live in the spotlight but also finding moments of peace within his home. Ethan's blog quickly gained attention, not only from his school friends but also from the online community. The truth about a child growing up in a famous family, facing expectations, and the challenges he had to overcome, created a strong connection with many people. His blog was not just a personal story, but also a powerful message about finding one's personal identity and overcoming life's challenges, especially when facing pressure from family and society. One of the most noticeable outcomes from Ethan sharing his story was the change in how the classmates who once teased him began to see him. Previously, Ethan had been the target of teasing and comparison to his father. But as he started writing the blog and sharing honest stories about his life, his old classmates began to view him differently. Some of the classmates, who had previously hurt him, started to realize that they had been wrong to judge him based on his father's fame. They recognized that Ethan was a talented child with his own passions and unique abilities, not just the son of the vice president. Many of them began supporting him, sharing his posts on social media, and even some sent messages apologizing for teasing him in the past. Ethan felt a new sense of pride. Not just because he had started to establish his own value, but also because he realized that sharing his story could help others understand him better, instead of just being seen through societal prejudices. The change in his classmates' attitudes made Ethan feel that he was no longer alone in life. He began to feel the freedom to be himself, without needing to live in anyone's shadow, even if it was the shadow of his father. The story of the vice president and his son, Ethan, is not just a simple family tale, it is a profound lesson in leadership, patience, and love. We often see leaders as those who are solely focused on power and politics, but the vice president in this story demonstrates a very different side of leadership in the family. With wise and thoughtful decisions, the vice president did not choose to resolve his son's problem with power or impose harsh measures. Instead, he created a space for Ethan to freely share his emotions, allowing him to learn how to face and overcome challenges in his own way. A good leader knows how to lead in the workplace, but also knows how to be a father who listens, understands, and is always ready to guide their children in finding their self-worth. By helping his son realize his own value and potential, the vice president demonstrated a very important quality of leadership: trust in the abilities of those around him and not forcing them to follow a certain mold. True leadership is not about always standing at the top and giving orders, it is about encouraging, supporting, and walking alongside those you love. Ethan, once a shy child who felt like he was only the son of the vice president, gradually found his own identity. He no longer lived under the pressure and spotlight of his father but gained the confidence to stand up, explore his own passions, and inspire those around him. Ethan starting a blog was not just a way to express himself, but also a declaration that he could succeed and be loved for what he did, not because of who his father was. This story is not only a lesson in how to handle family issues, but it also carries an important message about parenting in the modern age. Children today need not only advice about success and wealth, but also guidance in understanding themselves, their values, and their self-confidence. All of this can only be achieved with the care and support of their parents, especially those who understand that success is not just measured by a career but by how we face challenges in life. The story of the vice president and Ethan will surely make us think about how we face difficulties in our families and lives. What do you think about how the vice president handled his son's challenging situation? Have you ever faced a similar situation in your life, when dealing with family struggles but couldn't use power or influence to resolve them? This story reminds us that love and patience are the keys to solving most problems. Whether in family or work, a true leader is not just someone who makes decisions but someone who knows how to listen and share, helping others stand on their own feet. If you find this story meaningful and inspiring, please share it with your friends and family to spread the message of care, patience, and support that we can offer to our loved ones. No matter how difficult life may be, we can always find strength in moments of sharing and true love. Please leave your thoughts in the comments. We would love to hear your stories, reflections, and experiences on facing challenges in life and family. Remember, sometimes the smallest things can make the biggest difference. What a journey we've been on today. From heartache to triumph, the stories we've shared are more than just words on a screen, they are real, raw, and real-life experiences that echo with the very essence of what it means to be human. Now that you've witnessed the power of these tales, it's your turn. What did you think? What emotions did this story stir within you? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget, Heartfelt Tales is just getting started. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe so you never miss out on the next emotional roller coaster. We promise there's much more to come, and we'd love to have you along for every step of the way. So, hit that bell icon, and join our growing community of storytellers. The adventure continues, don't miss it.